Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday live stream. I'm excited to get started on this live stream because today I'm going to cover water rights. So I'm continuing my new format where I cover a particular topic in the live stream, and then after that, we go over that topic. I'll also cover very quickly some of our latest properties, and then we'll get into the vacation giveaway. So let me know your thoughts on this format. And as always, send me an email, let me know in the chat, send me a comment, direct message me if you have a particular topic that you would like to learn more about, and I can cover it on one of the Sunday live streams. All right, so now, as I usually do throughout the course of the live stream, I'll be checking the chat window. And as I have a pause, a natural pause, if there's anything that's come up there, a question or an interesting conversation, I'll jump into that as well. Okay, great. So I'm excited to get started. Now I'm starting a little early, so while we wait for people to join, I'll just go over who I am for anyone who's new or watching at home. Okay, so my name is Erica. I have a company called Gökçe Capital. You can find my company at gökçecapital.com. I buy and sell land. So if you want to sell your land or if you're looking to buy land, you can come here, either get your cash offer or go check out our listings. I'll cover some of our latest ones later. But I don't just buy and sell land. I also offer a lot of free resources, informational content, primarily for people who buy land, sell land, or are just interested in land. So landowners, land shoppers, land sellers, real estate agents, appraisers, attorneys, anyone involved in land transactions or land ownership. And it's very low on the sound. That's odd. Is anyone else having a hard time hearing me? Just let me know in the chat. But most of the informational content I provide is free through our blog. We have over 400 articles, and all of these are long form content, so over 2,000 words. So we try to go in depth in the topics that we cover. So if you have any questions or comments or you want to learn something about land, you can check out our blog. And then we do have some paid courses as well, which you can look at if you're interested in. All right, so happy to see a few people joining. Welcome. Thank you, Peggy, Canine Lover, and Michelle for joining me this Sunday. Nice to see familiar faces. And in another moment, we'll get started with the main segment of this live stream, which is water rights. But I'll wait one more minute to see if anyone else joins. The other resource we have for anyone who isn't familiar, although since you're all here through YouTube, you're probably familiar with my channel, but I do have a YouTube channel. Mainly I post videos that give information on the properties that we list, but occasionally I will post informational videos as well. And we have a whole library of Gökçe knowledge videos which cover informational topics too, so you can look through those resources as well. Yeah, if anyone else is having an issue hearing me, let me know. I haven't changed my mic settings, so thank you, Michelle. It's always let me know if there's any information that you would like to learn about or any topic you'd like to learn about in particular. I'll try to cover it. All right, thank you, Coyote Grad. Good to see you again. Thank you for joining me. Okay, so we've now hit 6 and I'm going to get started. This weekend, I wanted to cover water rights because if you haven't seen it, I did put out a video on the 2 million people who are estimated to not have access to running water in the US. And I discovered this topic just by accident looking through land news, and it was kind of shocking to me that there were that many people who did not have access to water in the US. And a good chunk of the people who are not served by running water are in the Navajo Nation. So this led me down through research on why water insecurity was such a big issue in the Navajo Nation. And hello, humans. And hi, Team Alaska. Oh, good to have you back. Well, I hope you enjoyed your vacation, and we're happy to have you back. And you may have seen it in the news, you may not have. I don't think it was a major issue within national news, but a little bit ago, the Supreme Court ruled against the Navajo Nation in a water rights dispute. I don't want to get into the full details of this topic because it's a little bit complicated, but I think it's a good case study that highlights how important water rights are, especially in the Southwest, and they're only going to become more important as, this year we've had a very hot summer. We have just gone through a period of mega drought, and the evidence does seem to show that we're going to continue to have these issues, and that's going to put more stress, water stress on the region. As we have water stress, water rights disputes are going to keep popping up. So whether you have water rights is going to become more and more important if you're in the Southwest, although I should note that water rights are an issue throughout the whole US. This is just an interesting case study. I don't have too much time to go into this particular case study, so you should just do a look through the news and see it. But basically, it's if we're talking about the Southwest, the 7 Colorado River Basin states, which I'll show you here. They're basically the entire Southwest. Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming are the upper basin, and the lower basin are Arizona, California, and Nevada. Most of these states get the bulk of their water from the Colorado River. And the way the Colorado River is proportioned among each of the different states is set based on the Colorado River Compact. There are a whole lot of, there's been a whole lot of, since that compact, there have been a lot of treaties, amendments, things like that, that have negotiations that have further stipulated how water is divided from the Colorado River. But just for the purpose of this case study, the key thing to understand is that the Navajo Nation, and actually all of the Native American nations, were not included in the Colorado River Compact. So a lot of them have not been able to access water rights that were granted to them in treaties. And that's what the Navajo Nation has been fighting for, the right to more water from the Colorado River. This particular case was over a very specific issue, just whether the federal government is required to fight for their water rights or not. But again, I'm not going to spend too long on this particular case because it's a little more esoteric. It's not actually about a specific landowner. But I think because it was in the news recently, it's a good example of how water rights can be very important. The Navajo Nation claims that without their rights to the Colorado River water that they should get through their treaties, according to them, they have a hard time supplying the water they need to their people. And this is one reason why there's so much water insecurity there. There are also other reasons why water distribution is difficult in the Navajo Nation, but I think it's a good case study for water rights, like I've said. So, yeah, and Silent Ninja is saying, I wish water was free and easier to access like it should be. And I think that is the key takeaway, especially in the Southwest, that water is not actually free. I mean, we all pay for it. So it's not really free anywhere, but in the Southwest in particular, it can be very tricky. And it is unfortunate. I'm not going to I'm not here to get into the morality of it. I think that's for everyone else to decide. But one thing that has become very clear recently is that there is likely not enough water to go around, especially as the Southwest population has boomed. And so it's a big issue. And if you're buying land in the Southwest, you need to understand water rights and how that's going to play into your ability to access water on your land. So just as and I'm going to be talking for this presentation, I can do another one about water rights in other regions, but I'm going to be talking mainly about the Southwest, which follows a form of water rights law called prior appropriation. And I'm actually going to pull up our blog article on prior appropriation here. So the easiest way to think about prior appropriation is first in time, first in right. It was a scheme that was developed during the gold rush when gold miners came out to the Southwest and they needed a lot of water to run their gold panning operations. So this was back when gold was still kind of easily available on the surface, and you would wash gravel from the surface with river water, and that's how you would get your gold. Although even deep mining operations needed a fair amount of access from the river. So all these miners were rushing out to the Southwest. They were diverting the river and using it to collect gold. And somebody further upstream, their diversion may affect someone lower downstream. And how they decided to deal with that issue was to say whoever was here first and started using the water first has the first right. And they have the right to use however much water they initially needed for the purpose that they initially started using the water for. They have the right to use all of that water before it can go to the next person downstream. That was codified into law, and for a while it seemed to work well when the Southwest was sparsely populated, because no one at the time had that, they didn't think that water would become an issue, but now it has. So we can see that you'll see stories, examples of farmers, say in central Arizona, who have had irrigation water cut off because they are further down in the water rights regime. So as water becomes scarce, whether you have those rights and then where you are in the chain of water rights holders becomes very important, because people who are lowest on the chain will be the first to have their water cut off if there's not enough to go around. There are also, now today every state has made this this whole kind of how you claim water rights and who gets them has become a much more formalized process. Before, you would just need to go to the water, use it, and then you could claim the water rights. Now, generally, you get water rights by applying for them from the state. And then the state, keeps track of how much water you have a right to and where you are in the order and where you can actually divert that water from. And in some states, you may only be able to use it in a certain location. And Team Alaska, if people were better stewards of the land, then we wouldn't have these issues. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, we're not always the best at using the natural resources that we have. But just quickly, you can see some of the key terminology here in prior appropriation. So there's appropriate, which means to have a perfected interest in the use of land. That's basically just saying you have the water right. Then there are the senior appropriators, people with primary right to the water or first right to the water, and the junior appropriators, people whose rights are dependent on there being water left over after the senior water rights users use their water. Another key term with prior appropriation is beneficial use. So generally, you can't now just show that you are using the water. you have to show that you're using it for beneficial use. So a lot of states will have different categories of water rights. There'll be different regulations for just say a domestic well versus an irrigation well versus mining. And then they'll have some uses that they don't really consider beneficial use. So those people who are using the water that way may not be entitled to a water right. So you apply for your water right based on what you actually want to use the water for. Fortunately, in many locations in the Southwest, you don't actually need water rights for a domestic well. But almost everywhere in the Southwest, you do need them if you want to do any kind of irrigation, if you're going to be using a lot of water for livestock. So even if you have a homestead, if you're using more water to grow crops or water your livestock than would be typical with domestic consumption, you may need a water right in order to get that water to use on your homestead. So that's very important. In the Southwest, you can't just go out and drill a well, especially again, if you're using it for irrigation, you need the water right. So you want to check with your state. In many areas, you're okay if it's a domestic well, but there are going to be some states, and in some instances, it's dependent on where in the state you're located. So for example, in Utah, they've broken down different counties based on whether they are open or closed water rights regimes. In an open county, they believe there's enough water that people can essentially drill new domestic wells without worrying about water rights. If it's in a closed regime, they're in an area where they're concerned about water usage, and you need a water right. You need water rights even for a domestic well. There's something similar in California as well. They have different water districts, and in some areas you don't have to worry about, in most of California, you don't need to worry about water rights at all. But in the desert counties or in areas that have been designated as areas where water has become scarce, then even for domestic wells, you're going to have to get water rights. So it's important when you're going to buy land that you do this research in the Southwest, I should say, that you do this research to see whether you need water rights for the particular use that you're looking to use the land for. And then if you do, what is the process of getting them? Now, typically, sorry, I'm just laughing at a comment. Typically, you have to purchase water rights on the market like you would land. Water rights are often a tradable form of real estate. So if you know anything about mineral rights, it's like that. They are considered a form of real estate. You can buy and sell them. That's the case, say, in Utah. The market's much smaller. You can't necessarily just go on Zillow to find water rights. But if you speak with a local real estate agent, or you speak with the State Division of Water Resources, they may be able to point you in the direction of where to go to search for people who are selling their water rights. And usually the way it works is someone has water rights to use water, like 200 acre-feet of water on their property. They have not developed their property, they're not using it, so they just want to sell those rights. You buy them, and then you transfer those water rights through the State Division of Water Rights to your property, and then you have a right to use a certain amount of water on your property. But again, every state's a little bit different, so if you have to do this, you want to look into the process in a little more detail. Now, there can be some things that inhibit the transfer of a water right. Again, these are going to be very state specific, so this is where it becomes important to work with a local attorney, and ideally a real estate agent who understands land and land issues. But there can be cases where water rights are actually tied to the land and you're not allowed to sever them. And other water rights holders can, on occasion, block a transfer of water rights if they believe it will cause injury to them. So I don't know how common that is. In my experience, I don't think it's that common, but it can happen as well. So these are things to keep in mind. And before I wrap up this little segment on water rights, I did just want to go over, we put in what a permit process looks like for trying to get water rights. So I did just mention often you buy water rights, but in some states you don't actually have to buy water rights, you just apply for a permit. And in most instances, as long as the county or the local water authority, whoever may have that power, sometimes it's a local unit of government, most of the time it's the state. As long as they haven't decided that there's water scarcity, usually in many areas you can just apply for a permit and get water rights that way. You don't have to buy them. If that is the process you follow, it looks more or less like any other permit process. You file an application, so you show where you want to use the water, how much you want to use, and what it's going to be used for. The state, it's usually a state board, like I said, will accept the application and maintain the records. And they'll also have to notify the public. In some states, there will be a review of environmental impact. If there is a public review, just note that sometimes the public can protest it. If it's a small water rights application, wouldn't imagine you would get protest, but there may be a nearby water rights holder who is kind of up in arms about new water rights being issued. And then you'll get the permit, and with that permit, you can use the amount of water you requested and were issued the permit for on your property for the use that you requested. So that's kind of a very basic overview of how prior appropriation water rights work. This is a very complicated topic, and you can, get into a lot of legal theory, which is, I'm not a lawyer, so that's not my area of expertise. But I can continue going further down this topic if it's something that's of interest to everyone. And Team Alaska is asking about rainwater collection. That's actually a really good question. So usually I'm glad you asked that, because that's another key point that I forgot to mention, but is very important. So water rights apply to surface water and they apply to groundwater. And often a state may have different regimes for those two water types. So what I've been talking about now generally applies to drilling a well, groundwater. But it's interesting, in Texas, I believe it is surface water that is governed by a prior appropriation regime, whereas groundwater, which today is more of the limited resource, essentially has no water rights regime. You can use however much you want. That's my understanding. So that's actually an important distinction to keep in mind. If you do happen to get land near a river, say, the regulations that govern how you can use that river may be different from the regulations that govern whether, how wells work, whether you can drill a well and how much you can extract from that well. So that's another important thing to keep in mind if you happen to have land where surface water is a concern. And that there's an interesting case study from California there where a farmer, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but a farmer was actually trying to allow his fields to flood during major rainstorms because, if anyone is familiar with California weather, it tends to go through cycles of drought, so kind of water scarcity for a number of years, and then they'll have a ton of rain and issues with flooding. And historically, the land has remained fairly fertile because the floods come through, they percolate down to the ground, they replenish the groundwater, and then that water is a resource for the dry years. With current farming practices, that hasn't been happening as much. All the water is generally appropriated as we just talked about. So not a lot of it trickles back into the ground. So this farmer, his plan was to make his farm more sustainable by allowing his fields to flood during the flood years. His theory was that then he would get his groundwater stores replenished and he wouldn't have to worry as much during the drought years. Again, I'm laughing at the comments. Yeah, unless it's a beer garden. And he actually then ended up getting in trouble. He had to fight for the right to do that. And I believe he's now been told he can't do that because the floodwaters have been claimed, the water rights to those floodwaters have been claimed by another party. So that's a surface water prior appropriation issue. I just pointed that out. So I was just using that case study to point out that prior appropriation can apply to groundwater, wells, and it can apply to surface water. Some states use prior appropriation for both. Some states have different regulations for the two. So that's another important thing to keep in mind. But when it comes to rainwater, I do not believe, although you should, as with anything, confirm this with your local officials, but generally I don't believe that that is covered under a water rights regime. So you may not be allowed to collect rainwater because they have public health concerns about it, but most states, I believe, according to my past research, actually allow rainwater collection. A lot of the Southwest states or a lot of local governments in the Southwest are actually trying to encourage it. So again, check with your local building official, but generally I do not believe that water rights apply to rainwater collection. That was a long-winded answer. Okay, so wow, I've blown through the time. Very quickly, if you all don't mind, I just want to go over some of our latest properties in case any of you are interested. I know some of you are actively looking for land right now. So as always, many of you are familiar with this, but you can go to our website, gookshaycapital.com, click Buy Land. You'll see a map with all of our available properties. I did just post a number of properties here. So one is in Socorro County, New Mexico. This is a desert property, although this is one of those locations where you don't need water rights for a domestic well, according to my research. But again, I always recommend you confirm these things with the county. So we are just to the southeast of Albuquerque, near the bottom of the Manzano Mountain Range, and we're just off of Route 47. Yeah, you should, Team Alaska, you should look up water rights in Alaska. I don't believe it's as much of an issue in Alaska because Alaska does not have the same kind of water scarcity issues. But yeah, you should look into it, especially if you're looking for like homestead land or land where you would need a well. So this does have access via a dirt road, and there is no zoning in Socorro County. So that's this is also not in an HOA. So according to our research, you can do pretty much whatever you would like as long as you comply with their building regulations. But I always recommend that you give the county a call to go over what those regulations may be. As with all of our properties, we do have both a cash discount price and an owner financing option. The cash discount price right now is $3,999. Now with the owner financing price, it's only $1 down plus the $299 document fee and then $199 per month for 30 months. There's also no interest. Having said that, you don't get the cash discount price when you purchase with owner financing. Although we just released a new offer with owner financing that we are excited about, trying to recoup some of our capital. So we're giving 20% off the total financing price if you pay off the loan in the first 6 months. This also gives you some more options if you're buying with owner financing. As with all of our properties that we offer with owner financing, there's no prepayment penalty and there's also no credit check. There's actually no application process. You just click buy or hold on the listing page in order to purchase the property. And a few others, we listed a property in Sandoval County, New Mexico. Again, this is another area where I don't believe you need water rights for a domestic well, but it's just outside of the city of Rio Rancho, which is, if you're not familiar, just to the north of Albuquerque. And it is off of a dirt road. This one is zoned CDRRE, or rural residential, which allows for single-family homes, including mobile homes and some agricultural uses. And the cash discount price right now is $1,999. Again, we offer owner financing as well. Also $1 down plus the $299 document fee, 0% APR, no prepayment penalty, no credit check, and the 20% off the total financing price if you pay off in the first 6 months. All right, so those are some of our latest properties, but we do have properties outside of New Mexico as well, so you can check out all of those on our main listing page. We will be posting more this week, I believe, so keep an eye out on the listing page. If you want, you can also get text alerts whenever we post a new property just by going to gokcecapital.com and clicking subscribe. If you go there, you can put in your email address to get our weekly emails. And in those, I'll let you know what our latest blog posts are or other informational content that I've been posting. And you can also get text notifications whenever we post a property, either anywhere or in a state of your preference. All right, so thank you for letting me go over those. And I see I got a question. If choosing owner financing, how soon can residency be established with RV or camping? Right, so you're right. I'm glad you pulled that up. You reminded me I didn't mention that. One thing I'll say with owner financing, because we don't do a credit check or an application, we do say that you can't build on or live on the property until the end of the loan term. So for residency with an RV or camping, etc., I would check with the state or county as far as what they require for residency to be established. I wouldn't think that if you can't live on the property, I wouldn't think that you could establish that lot as your residency, but you may be able to, if you get an address assigned to the lot, you may be able to use that mailing address, assuming that mail can go to the property as your mailing address. But I would talk to the county about residency requirements and what they specifically require there. And Silent Ninja, how long does it usually take to receive the land deed once we pay off the land? So we will draft and record the deed as soon as it is paid for. In most counties, we can record electronically, so that process usually only takes about 2 weeks, but there are some counties where we still have to physically mail in the deed. And in that case, it can take a month because we have to mail out the deed, then they have to record it, then they mail it back. In a lot of those counties, there are also some forms that the buyer needs to sign. So first we would need to send you those forms, get the hard copies back, and then we can mail them out. So that's why when we have to mail things to the county, it can take a little bit longer. But we do start the process as soon as the property is fully paid for. All right. Okay, so we're at 6:30. That's usually the end of this live stream, but we do have to do the vacation giveaway. I hope you found the live stream interesting. I always like feedback on this new format. But yeah, and I think almost all of you have joined this live stream before, but I'm still just going to go over the general terms of the vacation giveaway. So it is a voucher that's valid for usually a 3-night stay, but sometimes 4 nights in one of over 50 locations. Our travel partner classifies the hotels that are available as luxury level. The hotel stay is complimentary, but you have to pay for the rest of the trip, so flight, meals, you know, all of that. And you do have to pay the normal taxes associated with the hotel stay. The hotel stay is generally supposed to be for 1 or 2 people, but there will be some hotels in every location that will allow up to 2 children as well. So the way it would work is if you win, I'll give you my email address. Send me a quick email and I'll send you a list of all the locations. You select your location and then I'll send you the voucher. Once you get the voucher, you have 7 days to redeem it. When you redeem it, you do have to pay the taxes, but you don't have to select your travel dates. Once you've redeemed it, you then have 18 months to decide when you want to go and which specific hotel you'd like to select. And this has come up before. I will note that you can't see the hotels until you've redeemed the voucher. For some people, that's important, but I will say that there are a number of hotels to choose from in every location. And I think that's it. The only other important thing to keep in mind is because a lot of you are repeat visitors, and also some of you may have purchased land from us before, and we do offer vacation vouchers when you purchase a property from us. You're only able to redeem 1 voucher every year, and you can actually only redeem a voucher for a specific location once in a lifetime. There are over 50 locations though. However, if you get the opportunity to get 2 vouchers within a year, you do have a couple options. You can either give that as a gift, a wonderful gift, a very nice gift to a friend or family member, or we can give you a $100 hotel savings card instead. So you can keep showing up to these live streams and hope you win multiple times if you want hotel savings cards. And so I think that's it on the general terms. The way it works is if everyone who's interested in participating just says yes in the chat, we'll assign everyone a number based on what order they said yes. So the first person is 1, second is 2, so on and so on. And then I'll have Google pick a random number. If your number comes up, you are this week's winner. And for everyone who does not win, I am continuing to do this every week. And for the near future, we'll be giving a vacation voucher every week. So you'll have multiple opportunities to win. And so we'll just wait about a minute, make sure that everyone gets a chance to say yes. And I hope you all had a great week. It's cooling off a little here, and I'm very happy about that. It's been a hot summer. Speaking of water and heat. Oh, thank you, Silent Ninja. Oh, I'm glad it's been useful. I've said this a couple times, but I really mean it. If you have any thoughts on how I can provide more value on these live streams, let me know. And if you have any topic that you are interested in, I'm happy to make a live stream about it. Just let me know. You can send me a comment through YouTube. You can send me an email, however you'd like to reach out. Okay. So I think it looks like everyone who has wanted to participate has. So we have 7 participants. You have 10 seconds to say yes if you also want to participate. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, 7 participants. So we're going to have Google select our random number, and it is number 3. That would be Nutty Peanut. Fun name. I like that. Congratulations, you are this week's winner. I don't believe you won before, so I'm very excited. I'm happy that you were the winner. Just send me an email at this email address, and I will send you the list of locations. Yes, Silent Ninja, I know you won twice. Yeah, Silent Ninja is a good case study on how if you show up to these live streams enough, you will get lots of goodies. But it's nice that you're letting other people win. So for everyone who didn't win today, I'm here every week. If you keep coming back, you will probably win at some point. And I do appreciate you all being here with me. It's Sunday at 6 p.m. key time for friends and family, so I appreciate it a lot. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you here next week, same time, same place.